understand you're still hanging around with Dr. Emmett Brown McFly? No McFly ever amounted to anything in the history of Hill Valley.
Yeah, well, history is gonna change.
I'm Dr. Emmett Brown. I'm standing on the parking lot at Twin Pines Mall, and this is temporal experiment number 1.
When this baby hits 88 miles per hour,
What's this? What's this?
you're gonna see some serious shit.
Are you telling me that you built a time machine out of a DeLorean?
That ain't no airplane.
All right, okay, McFly. It's all a dream. It's just a very intense dream. You're George McFly. Yeah, who are you?
Marty, you look so familiar. Do I know your mother?
Yeah, I think maybe you do.
He's an absolute dream.
He's an idiot. Parents are probably idiots too.
I'm from the future. I came here in a time machine that you invented. Now I need your help to get back to the year 1985.
You interacted with anybody else today besides me?
I might have bumped into my parents.
Erase from existence. Next Saturday night, we're sending you back to the future.
Sorry about your barn. I'm from the future. I came here in a time machine that you invented. Now I need your help to get back to the year 1985.
Time travel has always been fascinating because it's something that I think we all fantasize a little bit about, and that makes it really interesting. And you know, when I started studying film, I realized that telling a time travel story in a movie lends itself to doing it probably better than in any other medium.
Bob Zemeckis and I, for years, had discussed the idea of doing a time travel movie, and we were never able to figure out sort of the hook, what was going to make a good subject for a time travel movie. Well, after we made a movie called Used Cars, I was back in St. Louis visiting my parents, and my father went to the same high school that I went to. And I found his high school yearbook in the basement. And I'm thumbing through it, and I find out that my father had been the president of his graduating class. I didn't know this. And I'm looking at him and thinking about the president of my graduating class, who was a guy I'd have nothing to do with. And I thought, would I have been friends with him if I had gone to high school, or would I have just hated his guts? So when I got back to California, I'm telling the story to Bob, and he's going, yeah, that's really interesting. So we just got going with that, and that was the germ of the idea. Well, Used Cars didn't do too well at the box office, but Columbia Pictures loved it. So the head of Columbia, Frank Price, said to us, as soon as you guys have another idea for a movie, bring it to me first. I want to hear about it. And by, I don't know, September of 1980, maybe October, we said, okay, let's go tell Frank Price about this. So we set up a meeting. We go in to Frank and we tell him basically this kid goes back in time and goes to high school with his parents, and his mother falls in love with him instead of his dad. Within days, we had a deal to write 2 drafts of Back to the Future, Columbia Pictures.
Wow, look at him go!
But to write a screenplay like Back to the Future, it was just an immense amount of very hard, back-breaking work. I mean, there was nothing really fun about writing the screenplay. It was really hard.
We had a first draft probably in 5 months. They asked us to make changes. We spent another 6 weeks or so, had another draft in spring '81, and basically they said, well, you know what, it's a really nice, sweet story, but we're kind of looking for raunchier comedies these days. No thanks, we're going to pass on this. So we said, okay, let's go take this around. And we were getting the same exact message from everybody. This is just not for us. But among the people that we showed it to was Steven Spielberg.
They brought it over to me and they said, nobody gets this. Maybe we're crazy. Will you read this and let us know what you think?
And I read it, and it was a very unusual story. And yet it was based on a lot of old-fashioned principles of family, coming of age, getting your first car, all the dreams and desires you have for your own life, the dreams and desires your parents might have had but didn't succeed in realizing. And it was about the generation gap, and it was about the major disconnect between our generation and our own parents' generation. And that was all done through an amazing object lesson, which was this sort of accidental trip back into the past.
He said, oh, this is terrific. I'd love to be on board and help you guys get this made. Bob and I were in a position where we'd done 3 pictures with Steven. I Want to Hold Your Hand and Used Cars, which Steven executive produced, and 1941, which we wrote for Steven. And none of these movies were big hits at the box office. So we were getting a little superstitious, thinking, well, if we do another movie with Steven and it bombs, we'll never get another job because we'll just be those 2 guys that only work because their pal Steven helps them set up their project. So we were totally candid with Steven and told him that this is why we didn't want to attach him to it, and he understood completely. So we're taking it to producers, we're taking it to studios, everybody's saying, take it to Disney, take it to Disney. So finally, Bob and I said, well, let's go take it to Disney. So we set up a meeting, and we go in, meet with an executive, and we sit down, and he says, are you guys insane? You've got this scene with the kid and his mom in the car. This is incest. We can't do this. So it was too extreme for Disney.
Well, I think it was a tough sell at the time because Bob Gale and I had no success credentials.
So Bob Zemeckis said, look, I got to direct again. I got to direct something. And I'm going to direct the next decent script that comes along. That was Romancing the Stone.
And that was a very successful movie. So suddenly studio executives thought Back to the Future might be a good movie. So it had actually nothing to do with the material.
And Bob is saying, well, let's go back to the one guy who always believed in it. Let's go back to Steven.
We had this good friend in Steven who's a filmmaker. And a filmmaker can see the work of a director and read a screenplay and kind of imagine what that movie might look like. He always understood what the movie was.
And we said, Steven, you still interested in doing Back to the Future? He says, damn right I am. And so we set it up. It was the first Amblin project that Universal set up with Steven not directing.
Hey, McFly! What do you think you're doing?
Biff.
Hey, I'm talking to you, McFly, you Irish bug.
Oh, hey, Biff. Hey, guys. How are you doing?
Yeah, you got my homework finished, McFly?
Well, actually, I figured since it wasn't due till Monday.
Hello? Hello? Anybody home? Hey, think, McFly, think. I gotta have time to recopy it. You realize what would happen if I hand in my homework in your handwriting? I'll get kicked out of school. You wouldn't want that to happen, would you? Would you?
Well, now, of course not, Biff. I wouldn't want that to happen.
So what are you looking at, butthead?
Hey, Biff, get hold of this guy's life preserver. Dork thinks he's gonna drown.
Yeah. So, how about my homework, McFly?
Okay, Biff. Well, I'll finish that on up tonight, and then I'll bring it over first thing tomorrow morning.
Hey, not too early. I sleep in Sundays. Oh, McFly, your shoes untied. Don't be so gullible, McFly. Okay. I don't want to see you in here again.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
What?
You're George McFly.
Yeah, who are you?
Bueno, gracias por acompañarme. Si te gustó, ¿por qué no seguimos la conversación de cine? Así es de que pícale aquí. Y también te invito a que te inscribas en el canal de este lado. Ya sabes, cualquier comunicación más directa, estas son mis redes sociales. Que estés bien.